right, I'm going to find our seats in order so you know who's talking. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much to our hosts, Victoria and Daniel. We're here on the Bitpanda main stage for day 2 of EBC 2025. And we're here to wake you up. We're here to talk about a really important topic, building across L1 and L2s. My name is Otto Jacobsson. I'm the CFO, and I run Yap Global, which is the leading PR firm in digital asset, blockchain, and crypto. But enough about me. Let's hear from our panelists. Guys, would you mind introducing yourself and what you do a little bit?
Good morning. Very shortly. So Guillaume Dechaux. I work for Consensys. Been there for 8 years now. Before that, I had my blockchain startup. I'm leading business development. I'm focused on Linea now. Linea is a layer 2. We did our TG 3 weeks ago. It's a project which started in 2019. Very different from other layer 2s. It's not optimistic. It's instant finality, the proof straight on the mainnet, and $2 billion FDV, just starting.
Hello, thanks for having me. I'm Helmut Siedl. I'm the chairman of the DMD Diamond Association, which is a non-profit organization, and our goal is to raise awareness for blockchain technology, educate people about it, and especially for the blockchain layer 1 DMD Diamond.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Matthew. I work at the Ethereum Foundation. The Ethereum Foundation's goal is to increase the hardness and resilience of the Ethereum blockchain and ecosystem, both on the technical and social level. I'd say I focus on the social side of it in the enterprise and institutional team, helping institutions that are looking to build on Ethereum and within the ecosystem. So that includes the layer 1 and layer 2s, like Linea, for instance. Good morning.
Hey everyone, Mounir from Velora. We used to be known as Paraswap for a few years and rebranded like 6 months ago. Actually, this is my first conference where I'm speaking after the rebranding. And well, Velora, what we do, Consensys is like a trading venue that's non-custodial, that's decentralized. So we aggregate liquidity from 10 chains, not yet Linea, but hopefully soon. And we processed over $130 billion in volume. And we empowered apps like Aave, Morpho, Ledger, and others for swaps or also other complex use cases that still involve swaps. And we are known for like cross-chain MEV resistance and best execution. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. Well, I want to start us off with a quote from Balaji. He said that decentralization is not the absence of a leader, but rather the multitude of leaders. So it might look bewildering to some, even in the industry, the proliferation of L1s, L2s, and so on. But surely it's a good thing that we have all these chains popping up, right? Disagree? Does anyone agree?
I think the ability for L2s to permissionlessly be created is important. L2s and L1s, but fundamentally L2s, the ability to inherit Ethereum security, particularly L2 being like a superset, and rollups being a subset of L2s where they use Ethereum data availability, which then grounds them at the most secure chain, is a good thing. But of course, not every company, not every application needs its own L2 necessarily. So we may see consolidation, but the experimentation and innovation is a good thing. I think so.
Yeah.
So because it's early in the morning, maybe make a step back. But when Joe Lubin and Vitalik created Ethereum, they had this trilemma that you all know, which is scalability, decentralization, and security. So the tech, and especially on Ethereum, has been developed, but we're still not there yet for all use cases. So in the meantime, we've seen a lot of L1, L2s as well, forking Ethereum or other technologies to maximize throughput, but it's always been at the expense of one of those three, right? So most of the time, it was scalability. And security was not there, centralization was not there. But the ultimate goal will still be to have a decentralized world, very secured, and with a high throughput. And So in the really long term, it's great now that we have Otto L1, L2s. In the really long term, do we really need all of those chains? Or, I don't know, today we have one internet, HTTP, right? Are we going to have several HTTP in the future for Web3? I'm not too sure.
Helmut, would love to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm seeing it a little bit different because I think that you're right. If multiple layer ones would be just like a clone of existing Ethereum technology, just for scalability, you say, okay, you can run on multiple chains, multiple transactions at the same time. This is the same thing you can do with layer twos also. So as scalability, you're right. But I think for the decentralization aspect, it's needed that there are different layer ones, not only one big layer one and then all the layer twos are around it, because from the decentralization point of view, this is just one blockchain. Yeah? So multiple layer ones, not only they increase scalability and decentralization, they also can have different abilities. Yeah. So for example, DMD Diamond, yes, we are full EVM compatible, so you can do anything that you can do on Ethereum also here, code the same language, migrate a project very easy. But on the other hand, this blockchain is secured by another consensus engine, which is the Honey Badger cooperative consensus engine, and this generates totally new abilities. Yeah. So I think in an interconnected blockchain future, there are multiple layer ones connected by multiple ways how they can interact, and this is creating real decentralization and not the one chain to rule them all.
Great, thank you. Anyone want to jump in here? Mounir, you look like you have some thoughts.
I can just add that I agree that we may not have thousands of L1s and L2s in the future, because it's just, even though it can solve
1,000 is enough.
1,000 is enough, yeah, we're gonna stop at 1,000. But I believe in like specialized L1s and L2s, like for very specific use cases that can solve it like in their own niche, because the thing is having an L1 is like, an L1 or L2 is like a decentralized backend. So instead of using AWS servers, we're gonna use L1s and L2s to have like a kind of a decentralized database that removes the trust factor for the end users. So I hardly believe we're gonna have more L1s and L2s successful at least, but I think we may have specialized L1s. We can see some of that emerging, like for instance, Pods is a new L1 that specializes in like auctions, for instance, like in decentralized auctions. So I believe this could be a trend, but the thing I learned from crypto being in a few years is that we can hardly predict what's going to happen in the future. I didn't believe in specialized L1s only a few years ago, and we can see that happening already and quite successful, like Hyperliquid and others.
Yeah. So, Matthew, I want to ask you, because there's been some specific, some institutions, some kind of traditional companies coming in and building L2s, but recently we've also seen some of them choosing to build their own L1. So how do you think about that from the Ethereum Foundation perspective? What's your pitch to these institutions for building an L2?
Just touching quickly on the last point, and then I think it links in. I would say that we, of course, want to extend and improve decentralization. More L1s is not increasing the decentralization of chains or the ecosystem. Decentralization is the number of nodes, the number of validators that are validating, and therefore giving the blockchain the values of consensus, of censorship resistance, resilience, and hardness. And that's why we would encourage institutions to build on layer twos, because you inherit all of those properties from Ethereum, which is the most decentralized chain that there is. And spinning up your own L1 is very costly. Not only is it costly, it also takes a lot of time to become decentralized, because the million validators or over 10,000 nodes that are currently running Ethereum, in order to get to that level of decentralization, you either need to incentivize incredibly heavily, which is very expensive, or you won't be decentralized. So the best thing that you can do is to leverage the existing decentralized chain, which is Ethereum, via a layer 2, specifically a roll-up, which inherits the security of Ethereum, and you can have the customization, the whether it's regulatory compliance, through security, through privacy technology, whatever it may be, at the layer 2, but maintain that security of Ethereum.
Just to reinforce what you just said, a lot of L1s say they are decentralized, but actually the governance itself is not really decentralized. So as you said, number of nodes, but who decide for what, technical implementation, etc. So that's very important. So about L2s, so we have different type of L2s, as you know, better than me. And I think the issue over the last few years is that the alignment with Ethereum has been a bit difficult. So at least what we try to do on the Linea is really to be 100% aligned with Ethereum. So the gas fees are paid in ETH, and whatever we do with everything we do with the gas fees is to burn ETH. So what we want to do basically is to give more value to Ethereum, and that's the best way to be aligned with Ethereum. So, and that's the first point. The second point is obviously the difference between optimistic rollup and what we do on Alinea, which is optimization, basically where you have the fraud proof immediately on the mainnet, and I think that's also more aligned with Ethereum, because for financial institutions, you can't just wait a week basically to get the proof of what you did on the mainnet.
Yeah, well, as you can guess, for the topic of decentralization, I have a little bit a different view. So if you say it's very costly to launch a layer 1, and as you say, it's very unclear where the governance is and how decentralized it really is. I think we just need to look back where it all starts at Bitcoin, yeah? And there was no company starting it. It was not costly. You could run it on, like 2 laptops can start a Bitcoin network, yeah? And it can be still similar today. Just you have to do it the old way, yeah? So you don't launch with a pre-sale, you don't launch with a pre-mine, you have a community of people and the network is owned by its participants. It's still possible. We did it this way. We did it this way because basically our original blockchain was launched in the year 2013, and back then this was the way to go, yeah? And now this year, like 4 years ago, we launched the new layer 1, and just a snapshot on the old chain, and all the balances exist on the new chain. There's no new coins generated, no coin sale at all. So it's following still these old logics, yeah? And so there's no company you have to trust. There's people, and the people make the decisions, yeah? And this new EVM-based technology also gives us the ability to launch a blockchain instantly with a DAO on-chain, where as soon as you start it, the ownership of all the core contracts, where all the core logic is in it, is going into the DAO, and it's absolutely decentralized. So everything, even there are some ecosystem parameters which are votable inside a range where we think it makes sense to move it around. The support isn't needed that high to accept the proposal. But then, if you want to change, make a contract upgrade or that, like 50% of the coin owners need to agree to do this. This is decentralization, and there's no company behind it. There's no head developer with his hidden key who can upgrade contracts and so on. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Switch gears a little bit. I think there's some dividing lines here, which is interesting to have different perspectives. But from a user perspective, they might not necessarily care about whether they're on an L1, if they're on an L2. But Matthew, or maybe throwing it to Mounir, you know, from a user perspective, they just want to be able to do what they want to do on chain, right? And you know, trades, move assets around. So is that still as big of a problem as it maybe was a couple of years ago? Is the interoperability problems, has it been solved?
Absolutely agree. Like, users also don't ask if it's React or it's AWS used when they go through any regular app, Web2 app, typically, or even Web3 apps. So users care less. We're still in a phase maybe where users still think which blockchain is being used, how much gas do I have, etc. But the infrastructure that's available today allow us to have a very advanced, I would say, abstraction layer. Like right now in our app in Velora, you can trade without gas at all. You can also swap tokens from one chain to another without even having to think much. Where is this token reside? Still, there is some level of abstraction I think we need to go further for, where users don't even need to think, let's say, for instance, stablecoin. They just need to think, I have a $1. Does it really matter for an end user? Is it like a USDC or USDT or anything else? It's just $1 and I'm
Well,
buying.
it mattered when you had UST, right?
yeah, of course. But maybe this is also what we need to work for. It's like maximizing on abstraction, but underlying maximizing on security. And decentralization is also related to security, because sometimes we think too much decentralization, maybe for the sake of decentralization, but the initial thoughts, or like the core thoughts of decentralization, is really providing a secure environment that anyone can use. This is really the objective of decentralization.
Okay. Interesting. Do you have any thought, Guillaume?
Not just from the user perspective. I think as you said, Mouniers, they don't really care whether if they are on Ethereum or somewhere else. What they need is to go on an application and just to have a Web2 experience. And so far, I think we've made the huge progresses, but I think we still there's still room for improvement from the users at the level of the wallet, for instance. So now we have account abstraction, like on MetaMask, for instance. The gas fees needs to be abstracted as well. That's the first step. Then the bridge. And probably Mounir, you're the best one to talk about that, the bridge, but we need seamless bridges, canonical bridges at the level of the protocol, so that you can move easily, seamlessly assets from the L1 to the L2. And obviously security. I think if we all on the same network, basically, security will be shared across all those L2s, basically.
But I agree, but this still assumes that Mounir and his team has done the hard work of adding support for those chains and so on, and with more chains being launched. Is that not a problem that you have to constantly catch up to the number of chains being launched?
Yeah, 100%. That's why maybe I was having this biased view that we don't need thousands of layer 1s and layer 2s because it's more work for us. But the thing is also our approach is to make our protocol as a platform where others can build on top. So the dream for me is like we don't have to like integrate each chain every once and there, is to have us on the main stack for new chains. So you launch a new chain, everyone needs like a lending protocol, a DEX, and maybe an aggregator, like how we'd like to see ourselves right now is like a best execution protocol. That's maybe a more scalable than us as persons having to like manually configure every chain. So, but yes, I think I hope that we won't have to get there to like just launch a new chain. I think it's always good to experiment and innovate, because each time I see a new L1, there's always a new approach, but maybe this is slowing down. And if you're looking at the years like in the 2017, 2018 cycle, it was launching a new chain, something normal. In the previous cycle, launching an L2 was something normal. And I think right now, launching a specialized chain became the new trend, and I believe this is maybe the right path.
Okay, interesting. Helmut, how do you think about this? You contribute to an L1, which is not Ethereum. It's not an L2. How do you think about interoperability with other chains?
Yeah, it's clear that it's way more easy to secure interaction between or inside one blockchain and its layer 2 extensions than it is between different layer 1s. Yeah, but you have to keep in mind what is needed to make interoperability secure between layer 1s is basically the same you need to interact with the real world. Yeah, basically you need a witness and validators. Yeah, and a consensus and a protocol which also acts decentralized, similar as blockchains are doing it. So it's not one node one entity deciding this happened or not. So it's decentralized. Many different nodes, many different entities have to agree it happened, act as a witness, and in this way you also can have safe interaction between real separate layer 1 blockchains. And if you have this technology, you can not only check out what happened on chain A and what should happen on chain B. You can also check out what happened on the Nasdaq, and the contract on this blockchain can interact to it. So you can really connect the world with the blockchain. If you solve the topic how layer 1s talking with each other, you can solve the topic how the real world can interact with the blockchain universe.
Okay, great. Matthew, I want to come back to you because you're part of a team that I think is pretty new at the Ethereum Foundation, right? So what's the story there, and is the EF really gearing up to be, reach mainstream appeal? Really, you have new leadership, you're taking a new approach. So how does that play out in your team?
Yeah, so the enterprise team at the Ethereum Foundation is 3 coming up on 4 months old. Historically, I would say the Ethereum Foundation wasn't necessarily engaging with institutions, enterprise, financial services, or regulators particularly much, probably in the goal of maintaining credible neutrality and being decentralized. However, if you are an institution that's going to tokenize billions of dollars on chain, whilst it is permissionless, and we all understand that, if I'm new to blockchains, you probably want someone to talk to on the other end of the phone when you're doing it. And maybe touching a little bit on some of those, in like the previous round of comments, do people care about what chain they're on? Well, yes, abstraction can take away some of that complexity, but of course people care what chain they're on. That's why Ethereum has over 90% of real-world assets, the majority of stable coins, and the most total value locked out of any other chain. Not only do retail care about what chain they're on, institutions absolutely care about what chain they're on, because if you're an institution, you have to understand your counterparty risk, and decentralization is a solution to that. It's a lack of counterparty risk. Now, there are nuances, there are tools that are required to make institutions comfortable building on chain, but of course, institutions and people care where they are, and that's of course Ethereum and the most secure chain.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
I think the beauty of this is we have optionality. Like with Web 2, it's either abstract or not. Like either we need to compile the software and run it on a local machine, which is like something for engineers. But here we can want to know what's happening behind the hoods, under the hood, sorry, and we can like really understand and like have no abstraction at all, as we can have abstraction, which is something we don't have in the Web 2 technology.
Let's see, Helmut.
Regarding choosing on what layer 1 you are, I think it's more important for project builders, because you have to find out what is your identity and what you represent with your project, and then basically you cannot build something on top of a layer 1 which isn't following the same view. If you want to build something decentralized, then you need to also select something that is following the core principles of decentralization as written down in Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper. I think we did split here as a blockchain community over the years, and more it got forgotten why it was invented. So there really the power and the control and the governance can stay at the people who just participate and operate the nodes at the chain. And if you have a project which is doing something which is also aiming for decentralization, don't know, a local currency for your community or something like that, or some sharing project or whatever, if it's something which follows this philosophy and mindset, you should build it on top of such a blockchain. And then users are not choosing chains, users are choosing projects, because you're not going to Ethereum because you're going to Ethereum because you want to use this project, You want to use this, you want to use this. then basically the project select the chain that you're using. So for the user perspective, he won't care, he won't even see it. So it will develop in a direction that it's invisible. It's like the jump from MS-DOS to Windows. When at MS-DOS, you know each command you execute, if you see each command like a separate layer one specialized on doing one thing, yeah, then back then you were able to see it, yeah. But then when Windows were coming, just the programs in the background were just launched by itself. You don't even know which one, yeah. And this will be the future of the blockchain, of the interconnected heterogeneous blockchain also, yeah. You don't even realize on what blockchain the transactions are happening. The choice is taken by the project which layer one it did select to launch on top.
Yeah, Guillaume.
No, I just wanted to, you're going to think we could work for the same company, but sorry, again, but I want to talk about the Ethereum Foundation and what they're currently doing. It's true that over the years, there was a lot of complaint about, okay, what is their Ethereum doing? Why is the price of Ethereum still at $2,000 where Bitcoin is at 100K? And I think it's because, and it's great what you do now, David, because people didn't really realize all the work which has been done to develop the tech, right? So obviously it started with the migration from proof of work to proof of stake. That was the biggest migration ever. But so it was, there was a lot of work. The community of builders, I don't know how many people, 500,000, 1 million of developers are contributing. Consensys have been obviously contributing a lot over the years. If you remember, I'm old enough now, but I remember if you were back in 16, 17, Ethereum was fighting against Fabric, Corda, all those technologies which have disappeared. Obviously now we see more kind of L1s or other networks like Canton. And again, those private initiatives are taking a shortcut either in the centralization or scalability or of the security. So there's always one thing missing. But what's interesting with Ethereum is that we are now at the level of maturity where financial institutions feel more comfortable with Ethereum.
Yeah.
And you may have seen the announcement at Cybos, in particular with us, that all the
So what kind of discussions are you having at the moment? I mean, I understand you can't share names, but what kind of new institutions or new organizations are you talking to that we haven't seen come on chain yet?
So maybe you will comment as well, but I think what they want, financial institutions, obviously is privacy. So that's still something we need to work on on Ethereum, and there's a lot of developments. I think they want to be interoperable 100% with Ethereum, but they also want to have a kind of permission KYC as well. So they want to be permissionless permission in a way. So and they want probably to manage themselves a sequencer of their own chain. So we have on Linear, for instance, financial institution will. Some of them will probably not deploy on Linear itself. That's what you were saying before. But they will use the Linear stack. So what we do, everything is open source. You can take a paste and copy of our own chain, basically, and launch your chain and implement additional features like a KYC permission, etc. So that's, I think, the strength of our chain.
Yeah, thank you. I keep driving at this point because I think it's interesting for the audience to think about why traditional financial institutions choose to launch an L1 versus launching an L2. And Matthew mentioned cost for launching an L1. You mentioned permissionless versus permissioned access and so on. Are there any other, in that decision matrix, any other considerations that they make why someone might launch an L1 versus launching an L2, Matthew?
Frankly speaking, I think that the token and the capital uplift potential of an L1 at the moment in the mind of investors is significant. So if I launch an EVM...
I guess Stripe doesn't really care about that, right?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, let's see. But in the mind of investors, an L1 has a bigger narrative than an L2, and I think that that is attractive for an initial launch. If I launch an EVM-compatible L1, then that sounds more significant than launching an L2. But there's a reason that all of the new L1s are EVM, because if they want to, they can very easily migrate and become an Ethereum L2 and continue with the customization that they have. But I think that by being an L1, you also have some other considerations where you can be essentially more centralized to have, let's say, more throughput or more control over the chain. And so it depends. I think there's both a business and a technical reason to do so, but it's still new and we'll see how they develop.
Yeah. So the EVM point is, of course, very interesting. Think about, you all kind of represent the EVM in some ways. DMD Diamond is EVM compatible. But Mounir, maybe you can shed some light on this. What is it like working with non-EVM compatible chains, and how painful is that for you and the team?
What I think is we don't, we're not live on a non-EVM chain, although we have studied some like Solana and Bitcoin as well, with two different worlds. And also it gave us like a fresh perspective on how things work differently, because we were only on the EVM and we put big bet on EVM, which was a rational bet because the flow and users and everything was happening there. Building on BTC, I would say, was the very hardest thing to do ever, because we had to not only get around the technical limitations of the Bitcoin itself, but also try to navigate this, I would say, political and controversial, I would say, world in the in the Bitcoin community for what we think are not rational, because we see some highly potential improvement that still will maintain the Bitcoin blockchain secure, but extend it. So we enable building real things on top of Bitcoin, which was something that we ended up just keeping as a POC at the end of the game. We like the Solana and Sui ecosystem because they try to follow the Ethereum footprint and try to build something useful and also accessible to developers, which was surprising to me because the narrative in the previous few years was if you're not on Solidity on EVM, you're not gonna make it, because everyone is working on Solidity and it's the easiest thing to do. And building on Rust was something very hard to achieve, and which at the end reversed the story and became a parallel, I would say, world to the EVM space. And now we see more convergence. Just yesterday, Uniswap launched on Solana in collaboration with the native aggregator, which I think will be the go-to, I would say, playbook that will be following once we launch on other non-EVM chains, because it's simply very, very hard to rebuild everything from scratch, but we can build on top of what others have built.
Yeah, and do you think that's a sign of the industry maturing, not choosing to build? Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And it's also interesting to think about, of course, Uniswap has a very strong brand, and even in the Solana space, they would be recognizable. Okay, so we're coming towards the end of our panel, which has been great, but just want to take sort of a look ahead to 2026. What are you most excited about? Maybe starting with you, Helmut. Yeah, what are you most excited about in 2026?
I think the year 2026 is the year of interoperability. Yeah? So I'm looking forward to that, because that really opens up the possibilities for all the separate blockchain now to be one interoperable heterogeneous blockchain base layer. Yeah? Basically, all the layer ones are the base layer where the blockchain-driven future is built on top. Yeah, I think it will start next year and it will improve the years later. The people no longer talking about Ethereum or DMD Diamond or other names. They're talking about utilizing blockchain technology. Yeah, and it's more a topic for the developers to choose this or that, or some marketing team which say this is fitting our vision of what we want to be as a company, what our product should represent. Maybe then you should choose the proper chain to build on top. But for the normal people, it will be just blockchain. There will be more and more wallet solutions which are supporting nearly all bigger blockchain solutions and holding the keys there. Really, interoperability is the point of 2026. I'm looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. Mounir, what are you looking forward to?
Definitely long interop as well. It's something we highly believe in. Also, end user dApps that are more mature and more looking like traditional apps, like Robinhoods of the world. But also, as I said before, we abstract, but we also always give optionality to end users. So I think this will be the key differentiator for Web3 dApps.
Matthew?
I agree with interoperability. I think it's incredibly important, but there's an abundance of block space. If all block space was created equal, then we would see it evenly distributed across chains. It's obviously not. So interoperability between chains, but each chain has a specific purpose. So the layer 1 is security, layer 2 is scalability, and the interoperability there is the native and canonical bridge. That's the security, because if I have assets on a layer 2 and it is a roll-up, then even if that layer 2 is faulty, if there's censorship, if there's any issues with the sequencer, I can withdraw my assets. I can force withdraw my assets from the layer 2 by interacting with the layer 1 smart contract. And then the second thing, interoperability absolutely is huge, but the second thing is, I think, the move from private chains to public chains. Enterprise has been experimenting with blockchains since before I was even in the space. And there's clearly a shift from private to public instances because just like intranets are no longer really around and everyone is on the internet, public chains with interoperability, with open innovation, and with essentially all of the users and liquidity is the real benefit of blockchains. And that's why institutions are coming to public chains like Ethereum, like Linear. And if they need privacy, if they need compliance, then there are solutions on top of that that they can leverage. But there's certainly a shift from private to public chains.
Great, thank you. Guillaume?
So just for, not only Linear, we are Consensys, Consensys, MetaMask. You may have seen that we've been shipping a lot over the last, there's no 1 week without an announcement. So we're launching perps, we're launching dexes, we've been launching MetaMask stablecoin, we've been launching MetaMask rewards. More things to come. Joe made a few announcements. That's for MetaMask. For Linear, for us, it's continue with our technical roadmap. Next few weeks, we're going to be stage 1 according to L2bit ranking. Probably in Q1, level stage 2, which is the highest level of compatibility with Ethereum. And I think this is just going to prove that this is a safe place for all institutions going forward.
Great. Any final thoughts from anyone? We've covered it all. Well, it's been a fantastic panel. Building across L1s and L2s. Can we give it up for Mounir, Matthew, Helmut, and Guillaume? Thank you very much.